What's up, guys? This is Rey-Jay back with another video. And in this one, I want to give you guys a very quick update about NIO and the markets. Just know that I am not a financial planner, so take nothing I'm saying as financial advice whatsoever. And also, if you guys can, please check out my Moomoo link that's down below, or use my QR code right here to sign up. If you sign up for Moomoo and deposit $100, you're going to get $20 of free Nvidia stock. If you deposit $2,000, you're going to get $50 worth of Nvidia. Deposits $10,000 to get $300 worth of the stock, or deposits $50,000 to get $1,000 of free Nvidia. You're also going to qualify for a 3.6% APY base rate plus a 4.5% APY extra for 3 months, making it a total of an 8.1% APY. The offer ends very soon, so please check out my link down below. Anyways, now let's talk about what's happening with the market. So looking at NIO, we have a left shoulder heading to the right shoulder, and we're dropping so far. We're going to see if we get a big bounce or not, but overall, there is a risk of us dumping back down towards $5 or below. Also, the overall market got a huge rejection, unfortunately, and there's no sign of us truly forming a bottom yet. And because we have a big bearish engulfing candle on SPY and the QQQ, we're still favoring downside. So all I can really do is just favor the trend and just know that we are still going to be looking out for more downside heading into tomorrow. So be very careful with what's going on. And for now, the bears have a bigger edge. NIO was talking about how they have their infamous FSCC, or the Formula Students Autonomous China event. So they have that event alongside the other one known as the NIO Cup Formula Student Electric China, where they're basically going to be looking for students to not only work on developing new vehicles, but they're going to be doing this together, kind of like getting more attention, working together to once again develop these inspections of the vehicles. Then simultaneously, this can be very good for the hirings moving forward. So that's what we're essentially seeing. But other than that, there's not really much else going on. We just have Mizuho giving us a neutral rating, and the price price ratio is falling as the market is declining. NIO is also on a losing streak. Unfortunately, it's been dumping quite a bit because there's a lot of fear about their earnings not really meeting expectations, their profitability not really being there. And simultaneously, the whole market is dumping, so that's part of why NIO is getting dragged down. The October jobs numbers, they're likely not going to be coming out, according to some data. And then there's also some news right now about the labor markets. There's a good chance that when the November jobs numbers come out, they're going to be delayed up until December 16th. So the Fed is very uncertain about if they're going to give us a cut or not, because they're debating about the economy's health, whether inflation is stubborn, or if weak hiring is representing a bigger threat. So there's a lot of debates right now, at least in the Fed, and we don't know if we're going to get a cut or not. Right now, it looks like we're not going to get a cut in December due to the uncertainty and lack of data. And then on top of this, we got the September jobs numbers showing some strength in the labor market, which is now once again causing the markets to think that the Fed may not even cut. We have Hassett from the Fed who came out, or actually, he's the director of the president's National Economic Council. Let me just correct that. He said that it's a very bad time for the central banks to pause cutting because the government shutdown has dented the economic growth in the fourth quarter. So he is once again favoring that they should cut more. So some people are saying we should cut, others are saying that we shouldn't, and it's leading to a lot of uncertainty. Now we're going to see what happens tomorrow. Tomorrow we just have a bunch of Fed speakers again. Then we have the S&P Global Composites and Services PMI reports alongside the Michigan Consumer Sentiment reports that may cause some volatility at 9:45 a.m. and 10 a.m. And besides that, there's not really much else coming out for earnings. So we're going to see what happens. For NIO, we have a left shoulder heading a right shoulder. We're going to see what happens as time goes on, as there's some downside risk. I think the odds are favoring the $5 area, so watch that very closely because we're favoring more downside. On the daily time frame, we could be looking for a move back down to fill this gap around the $5 area. I think the odds favor some more downside. On the SPY charts, we basically have a left shoulder ahead and then a right shoulder, and we're going to be favoring more downside now. One thing I'm looking at is this gap on the daily. If we don't hold 650, there is technically a gap at 648 that could get filled, and then we could also be dipping back down towards the 645 area next. On the 4-hour time frame, we're actually losing the lows. So this low right here where this wick is, that's around 646, that could be tested. And there is a risk of us declining more, unfortunately. So This looks like a larger left shoulder, head and right shoulder, but instead of getting a big like bounce, instead of this being complete at 655, it looks like it's not complete yet, and this may continue to decline, taking us to new lows. So I still see some more downside on SPY. Same thing with the QQQ. We're losing 585 right now. We are favoring more downside. I think there's going to be a test of 581 on the daily time frame. I would not be surprised if it continues to decline. We need to see if we could hold around this 580 area, this resistance becoming support. If 580 breaks, though, I would not rule out the possibility of us filling this gap back down to 565. So there might be a really big drop coming before this tries to bounce. It looks like we're not ready for the bottom yet, and it looks like we have to see a big adjustment. On the IWM, we're dipping. We could be dipping to 226. There's a gap to fill on the Russell. I think we fill this gap very soon, so I do favor downside. ES could be dipping to 6,500 flats, and we'll see if that holds. NQ is also going to likely be dipping to 24,000 flats, and we'll see if we bounce or not. But overall, there's downside risk. And then Bitcoin is also dipping back down towards 86,000, so we'll have to see what happens. On Tesla, we're also dipping back down towards this 385 area, so I see some downside risk. Nvda has a bearish engulfing candle. So we basically gapped up, we pumped after earnings, but instead of continuing to run with all the good news, we got a huge rejection. And now it looks like the bearish wedge-like pattern will pan out this time instead of getting a big bounce. And there is a risk of more downside on Nvidia stock. As a result, we could be revisiting 174. Apple could also be dipping to 264 or below, and we're seeing some more downside risk in the markets. Coinbase is favoring 235, Amazon's favoring 210. Meta's collapsing, dipping to 580. The whole market's tanking. I do see this as another buying opportunity, but as of right now, there's no confirmation yet that we are done with downside. And if the VIX breaks past 30, I think we're going for this gap fill over here around 36. So for now, the VIX looks more bullish. It might continue to push as this market continues to decline. So I still see some more downside risk. I don't think that we have fully bottomed yet on SPY, and I'm going to be watching some of these gaps below. I would not rule out 645 on SPY, and the QQQ could be looking for essentially 580 if that fails us. I would not rule out, a potential dip towards 575, then the gap fill back down to like 565. Unfortunately for the bulls, we're looking more bearish, and this is dragging stocks like NIO down. NIO could be dipping to $5 flats, and there's another gap to fill at 4.46. So for now, we're still looking bearish. Thank you for listening, guys. That's my assessment right now. I still think we dipped about below $5, and we'll see what happens with the more significant data that's coming out. Thank you for listening, and peace out.